Hey, today I am reading What If No One Recognized Bella and Bree After the Hunt. So let's get started. Twilight, Evening Storm, based on the characters and situations created by Stephanie Meyer. This is a work of fan fiction. I make no claim whatsoever to own any of the characters or the setting. They are the property of Mrs. Meyer, the original author. Thanks to Mrs. Meyer for creating such memorable characters, this story is written all in good fun. Our hunt had gone well. The thrill of the chase still coursed through me as Bella swam and I walked back towards our house, holding hands, exhilarated from the taste of fresh animal blood. As we neared the edge of the forest, a sudden wave of pain crashed over me, a throbbing headache that felt foreign and unwelcome. "What's the matter?" My wife put her arm around me. "Headache." I squinted. The sunlight filtering through the thick clouds of Washington State stung my eyes. "I thought we couldn't get headaches," Bella said, her kind face shadowed with concern. "Me too," I replied, wincing. "I've never had one before." "Let's get you to Carlisle." My adopted father was a doctor, and knew more about vampire biology than anyone. Just as I was trying to focus on moving through the discomfort, a flash of light caught my attention. I looked up to see a bolt of lightning suspended in the air, bright and fierce against the cloudy sky. It hovered there, electrifying the clearing with an eerie glow, casting strange, off-color shadows around us. "Bella," I breathed, the headache making my voice sound distant. "I see it," she replied, her tone serious. She acted on instinct and extended her psychic shield around me. Her familiar, protective warmth enveloped my body. I immediately felt some relief. Bella's shield soothed most of the pain, but didn't quite eliminate it. "That helps," I said. "Thanks." We stood in awe for a moment, watching the surreal phenomenon. I didn't know what to make of it, and from her puzzled expression, neither did Bella. The air crackled with tension and unease. A sense of wrongness grew inside me. I didn't know what that bright, jagged mark across the sky was, but I didn't like it. "I think we'd better get out of here," I said, my voice still shaky. "Yeah, you're right," Bella agreed, her expression serious now. We turned and ran, the forest blurring past us. Just as we reached the edge of the clearing, a crackling sound echoed through the trees. The force of it knocked us off our feet, and whiteness engulfed me as I felt the world spin away. When I came to, the first thing I noticed was the silence. A profound stillness circled around me, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. I blinked, trying to piece together what had happened. My head still ached, but the pain was muted now. "Bella," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. Panic began to creep into my chest as I pushed myself up, searching for her. I spotted her a few feet away, sprawled on the ground, her eyes closed. "Bella." I scrambled over to her, checking for any signs of injury. She looked peaceful, but I couldn't shake the fear that twisted my stomach. "Please, wake up," I pleaded, shaking her gently. I needed her to be okay. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open, and her gaze focused on me. Relief washed over me as I met her worried golden eyes. "Bree," she murmured, blinking against the light. "I'm here," I reassured her, brushing a lock of her dark hair from her face. "Are you okay?" She sat up, rubbing one temple as she groaned softly. "What just happened?" "I don't know," I replied, unable to let go of the feeling of wrongness. "But that lightning, it felt wrong." Bella nodded, looking around, and I could see her processing everything. "We need to get home," she said, her voice steadier now. "Yeah," I said, helping her to her feet. "Let's move." There was no sign of that strange, stationary lightning as we carefully made our way back home through the trees. A few birds had begun to sing again. The clouds had cleared somewhat, leaving some patches of brilliant blue sky. "How long were we out?" I asked Bella. She smiled at me wryly. "I don't know. I'm not wearing my watch." I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we had encountered wasn't finished with us yet. I squeezed Bella's hand, drawing strength from my wife's loving, steady presence as we hurried back home. I didn't know what that phenomenon was, and it was so far removed from anything I'd ever seen before I didn't even know what to call it. "It looked like lightning," I said, thinking aloud. "But an electrical surge that just stays there in midair for several minutes can't be lightning, can it?" Not that I've ever heard of, Bella said thoughtfully. Are you all right? How's your head? Yeah, I'm okay, I replied, though traces of the headache still lingered. What happened back there? No idea, she said, shaking her head. I've never seen anything like that before. As we approached our house, I noticed something unusual. Two figures I'd never seen before were standing in the backyard, talking. The first was a striking teenage girl with stylish blonde hair that cascaded over one side of her face. She wore blue jeans and a black leather jacket. The second was a teenage boy. I couldn't see him well, as the girl was standing between us. The girl spun around to face us as we approached, her expression fierce. Who are you, and what makes you think you can just walk onto private property? She demanded, her voice sharp. If you have business here, state it. I exchanged a glance with Bella. Before I could respond, the boy called out, Ernest, Roy. I could tell from his scent that he was human. He was ordinary looking, neither handsome nor ugly. Though his face seemed kind enough, right now his eyes were apprehensive. Very funny, Bella replied dryly. We live here. The blonde girl was definitely a vampire. After Bella, my adopted sister Rosalie is probably the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but this girl came close. Her flashing amber eyes marked her as one of the rare vampires, like Bella and myself, who don't drink human blood. Though we had that in common, it didn't make her friendly. The blonde vampire stood between us and the house. Why don't you try a more obvious lie? I've never seen you before. Two more figures emerged from the house. Both were vampires and walked with confidence. They acted like they were in complete control of the situation. I didn't recognize either. What were they doing in our house? The taller one, with auburn hair, stepped forward, his voice firm. You heard my daughter. It's time for you to leave. I felt a rush of unease. Bella and I shared a quick, concerned glance, and I could sense her hesitation as we considered our options. The blonde vampire's gaze shifted, a strange look dawning in her eyes as she took us in. Wait a minute, Dad. My eyes widened at the casual endearment. Bella and I exchanged glances, our eyes wide. Another group of vegetarian vampires. What had happened to our family? The auburn-haired male's demeanor darkened. Well, you were warned. Edie, Roy, you take the one on the left. We'll knock them unconscious and dump them over the state line. Panic surged within me. Bella, I whispered, tightening my grip on her hand. Before I could fully process what was happening, my other adopted sister emerged through the back door, her usual brightness dimmed by confusion. What's all the commotion? Alice asked, looking between us and the strange newcomers. Alice, thank goodness, I exclaimed, relief flooding through me. Who are these people? Tell them who we are. Alice glanced at the group with a frown, then back to me. I'd be glad to, but I've never seen you before in my life. My heart sank. Alice is one of the kindest people I've ever met. She doesn't have a cruel bone in her body. The vampire standing before me was undoubtedly her, but her behavior made no sense. The idea that she'd be involved in playing some kind of awful trick on us was flatly impossible. She couldn't be lying, but I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The blonde vampire was studying us intently, as I trying to piece together a puzzle. Her father opened his mouth to respond, but I interjected, my voice trembling with urgency. We're not here to cause trouble. We just want to understand what's going on. Bella squeezed my hand tighter, and I could feel her kind presence, grounding me amid the chaos. Please, we just want to know why you're here, my wife said, her tone surprisingly calm. Why we're here? The blonde male asked. I could tell from his stance that he, Roy, was dangerous. Just who do you think you are, coming to our home and asking that? Roy was clearly the shoot first and ask questions later type. I glanced at Bella, about to whisper my observation to her, but the look in her eyes showed she'd already figured that out. Alice nodded in agreement with what Roy had said. If there's something you want to share, now would be the time. The father stepped closer, a commanding presence as he said, Alice, you're with me. We'll get the one on the right. But before anyone moved, the blonde vampire, Edie, held up her hand, halting him. Wait, she said again, her voice steady. Bella stared at Edie, confusion evident in her eyes. What do you mean? The father pressed, glancing between them. After what happened last time we hesitated, he trailed off, but the others clearly knew what he meant. Edie took a breath, choosing her words carefully. She's not hostile. She didn't come to do us harm. I think she believes they're telling the truth. She thinks she lives here and we're the ones who don't belong. I glanced at Bella, a genuine fear creeping into my chest. How come Alice didn't recognize us? I whispered, uncertainty clawing at my insides. I don't know, Bella replied softly, her gaze still fixed on Edie. Stay close to me. As we stood side by side, I sensed something strange in her eyes as she looked at Edie. What is it? I asked, trying to read her expression. The blonde girl. There's something that reminds me of, she trailed off. Then, without warning, Bella raised her hands and stepped forward, her demeanor shifting. I used to know someone who lived here. My boyfriend, from before I met my wife. The words hung in the air, the weight of them resonating between us. Bella's gaze was locked on Edie, and the blonde vampires practically jumped out of her skin. Yes, I can, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, a tremor of disbelief lacing her words. She was gazing at Bella in disbelief. How did you know? The father stood there, his mouth forming the word wife, but not giving voice to it. The silence stretched, tension vibrating between us, the implications of Bella's announcement settling over the group like a thick fog. You knew someone here? Alice asked softly before Bella could answer. Yes, Bella replied, her voice steady but laced with emotion. He was a good person, my first love. Edie stepped forward, her expression shifting from hostility to curiosity. What was his name? Edward, Bella said softly. Edie blinked in surprise. Edward? That's my father's name. Well, my birth father. He died a long time ago. But he never lived here. We lived in Chicago, Bella suggested, finishing Eddie's sentence at the same time she did. Bella took a step closer to Edie. Miss, the way you talk, and your ability, I think you're Edward's sister. I glanced at Bella. This was getting wilder than I ever imagined. Edward had a sister. Bella shook her head slowly, her voice soft. Not that he ever mentioned to me, but maybe he didn't know. No, that's absurd, Edie interjected, her disbelief heavy in every word. I don't have a brother. Bella took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. Were you born on June 20th, 1901? Eddie's eyes went so wide they were practically round. How could you know that? Bella nodded, her throat constricting as emotion filled her eyes. That's it. You're Edward's twin sister. And neither of you knew. For a moment, silence enveloped us as Edie stared into Bella's eyes, searching for the truth. I don't know if you're right, she said slowly, but you believe it is. Guys, I don't think the ladies are our enemies. Relief flooded my chest, though the uncertainty of what lay ahead still lingered. Bella turned to Edie, her expression softening. What's your name? I'm Edie. Short for Edithy, she replied, glancing at the others standing nearby. This is my boyfriend Max, my dad Ernest, my brother Roy, and my sister Alice. Your family? Bella said, her voice warm. But you're all adopted, right? You're not actually biologically related. Ernest nodded, crossing his arms. That's right. How did you know that? My boyfriend told me a lot about himself before he died, Bella explained. I'm still close with his family. We all live together, and they've told me more about him. And I've pieced together other parts of his life from what he shared and what I've come to understand since. Edie regarded Bella thoughtfully, her expression softening. You really did know him? Yes, Bella said, her voice steady. I loved him. But I also learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about love. Unconditional love. You all share a bond, the same kind his family has with each other, the same kind my wife and I have with them now. Edie looked at Bella thoughtfully. I can see the image of him in your mind. He does look a little like my dad, my birth dad, that is. You have his eyes, Bella said softly. The human boy, Max, addressed Edie. If you really had a twin brother you never knew, we need to find out how that happened. As I stood there, watching the exchange between Bella and Edie, a whirlwind of emotions swirled within me. Bella, I don't think that explains everything. Bella took my hand again, her grip reassuring. How do you mean? I think you're right that she's Edward's sister, but that doesn't explain why these vampires are living in our house or why Alice doesn't recognize us. Edie turned to the other vampires. They're telling the truth, or at least they think they are. Alice, when they think about you, they definitely know you. She knows your quirks, everything. Alice took a step back, worry creasing her brow, but Eddie's voice softened. Don't worry. They love you, Alice, and think of you as a sister. Just like I do. Bella looked at me, her eyes steady as she encouraged me to continue. Go on, Bree. A few years ago, I saw a movie, Back to the Future Part 2. A chorus of groans erupted from the group. I held up my hands defensively. Yeah, I know it was a terrible sequel to a great movie, but hear me out. In the movie, the characters accidentally create an alternate timeline, a place where something changed in the past, so the present is different. Bella's eyes widened. You think we're in an alternate timeline? I nodded. One where Edward had a twin sister. One where you and I were never born, or maybe we died before we met the Cullens. That's why Alice doesn't recognize us. We never met in this timeline. They don't know us because this isn't our house. Or it is, but it's not the same one we left. Roy snorted, shaking his head. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Wait a moment, Roy, Ernest interjected, his voice thoughtful. Is this even possible? How is it possible? Max looked skeptical but intrigued. But how did you get here? The lightning, I said simply. Bella nodded, piecing it together. You think that strike sent us to an alternate timeline? The others looked up at the sky, their expressions shifting from skepticism to curiosity. It was getting cloudy again, but no rain fell, and definitely no lightning flickering across the sky. Roy crossed his arms. There's been no lightning today. Bella's gaze hardened with determination. Well, we were on our way home from hunting when we were struck by something. Alice chimed in, her voice steady despite the uncertainty in her eyes. If that's true, then why you? And why did you come here? Edie spoke quietly to Ernest, Roy, and Alice. Whether that theory's true or not, they're telling us the facts as they know them. They're not lying. Bella nodded to herself, processing everything. Edie, right. Edie nodded, her expression softening. You started out saying, she, then switched to, they. You couldn't read my mind before, could you? Until I dropped my shield, and now you can. Edie nodded slowly. Bella stepped forward, enveloping Edie in a fierce embrace. The gesture caught Edie off guard, her arms hovering awkwardly before she finally patted Bella's back. A soft smile broke through the blonde vampire's initial uncertainty. Edie, I loved your brother, Bella said, her voice thick with emotion. Very much. I blinked at the rawness of Bella's words. Edie pulled back slightly, searching Bella's face. Thank you for saying that. I never knew him. But I'm glad to hear he meant so much to you. The connection between them looked real. Edie could apparently read minds the way Edward had. I couldn't, but I could tell from looking at them that a friendship was forming. Bella wanted to be friends with the woman who might have been her sister-in-law if her boyfriend hadn't died. Edie wanted to connect with the woman who might be her only link to a brother she'd never known. I just hoped there was room for me somewhere in all this. We need to understand what happened, I said, trying to steer us back on track. If we really are in an alternate timeline, we have to find a way back home. Home? Edie echoed thoughtfully as Bella let her go. Do you think you can? We have to try, Bella replied. We have lives, my dad, our sisters, brothers, our niece and nephew. We need to figure out what brought us here. Roy shrugged, clearly still doubtful. How do you propose to do that? We can start by investigating the lightning strike, Ernest said. There might be something in the clearing where it happened that could explain this. That's a good idea, Edie agreed, her amber eyes shining. Bella looked at each of them in turn. A mixture of tension and hope hung in the air, an electric charge that mirrored the strange circumstances we found ourselves in. Thank you, she said earnestly. Thank you. My name is Bella Swan. This is my wife, Bree Tanner. Ernest's brow furrowed in recognition. Swan, as in Chief Swan. Bella nodded earnestly, a flicker of concern passing over her features. Charlie? Is he okay? He's fine as far as I know. I don't know him well, Ernest replied. his tone neutral but thoughtful. I never heard of him having a daughter, though. I think his son lives in Florida. Bella and I exchanged a glance, a wave of surprise washing over us. I have a brother in this timeline? She asked, her voice laced with disbelief. Apparently you do, Edie confirmed, her expression one of sympathy and curiosity. Roy crossed his arms again, skepticism still etched on his face. How can you be married? Same-sex marriage isn't legal. Bella smiled. It is where we come from. Edie interjected, her tone firm. They're not lying, Roy. But how is this whole alternate timeline thing possible? Ernest questioned, his brows knitting together in puzzlement. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation press down on us. I'm a vampire standing with a group of vampires, one of whom can read minds, and another can see the future. Who's to say that it isn't possible to travel to other timelines? But why you? Alice asked thoughtfully. And why here? Why didn't, I don't know, the president get struck by lightning in the Oval Office and appear in a world where everyone speaks French? The silence that followed was heavy, each of us grappling with the uncertainty that loomed over us like a storm cloud. No one knew the answer to Alice's question. I could feel the pulse of anxiety thrumming through me, the thought of being lost in an unfamiliar world, far from home. Yet, as I looked at Bella, the determination in her gaze ignited a flicker of hope within me. It has to mean something, Bella said, her voice steadying the room. We're here for a reason. Maybe part of it is to figure out how we can return home. Roy looked at Edie, his skepticism wavering for the first time. And if we're not enemies, what do we do next? We figure it out together, Bella replied, her conviction unwavering. But we need to start by understanding the lightning strike, if that's what it was. You're right, Ernest. We need to go back to that clearing and see if we can find any clues. Ernest nodded, his expression shifting from wariness to determination. I'll help you. If this lightning has caused something this significant, we can't ignore it. You're here, and you're friends, but the next people who show up might not be. Me too, Edie chimed in, her eyes sparkling with eagerness. I'd love it if you could tell me more about my brother. Come on in, Alice chirped. As we walked inside, I felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation swirling in the air around us. Edie had told her family that they could trust us, but I could tell that Roy wasn't as comfortable inviting us into their home as Alice was. I supposed I couldn't blame him. Though we seemed to be connected somehow, we were total strangers. Ernest's voice cut through my thoughts, steady and authoritative. Well, regardless of whether what seems to have happened has really happened, or how, or why, Miss Swan and Miss Tanner are here now, and for now, they're our guests. You two ladies can stay in the guest room. His tone left no room for argument, and Roy nodded. Sir, I pointed out, it's actually Mrs. Swan and Mrs. Tanner. Ernest's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and realization crossing his face. My apologies, ladies. This is going to take some getting used to. He paused for a moment, then added, I suppose you already know where the guest room is. Bella and I exchanged a glance and nodded. Max spoke up. That's assuming the room they use for guests in their house is the same room we use for guests in our house. Good thinking, Max, Ernest acknowledged. You and Edie can show our guests to their room. As we walked through the house, I took in the surroundings, the scent of aged wood and a hint of lavender filling the air. Though the layout was exactly the same, there were differences here and there. The display of mortarboards was arranged differently. For instance, even though Bella and I had left our house this morning, walking into this version of our house was like returning to a friend's house that you haven't seen in years. Though it's familiar, the changes that happened when you were away meant it's not exactly the same place you left. Max looked back at us. You didn't hyphenate your names when you got married. I grinned wryly. Well, we talked about it, but Tanner Swan sounds awkward, and Swan Tanner is worse. So we decided to stick with what we had. It was easier that way. Max chuckled. Fair enough. Edie led us to the guest room, a cozy space with soft light filtering through the curtains and a comfortable-looking bed against one wall. Max had been right. It wasn't the guest room at our house. It was my room, the one Bella and I shared. It was furnished, but it had none of the things that made it home. Bella reached for my hand, and I could tell she was thinking the same things I was. Edie turned to Bella. Can you tell me about Edward? I'd love to know more about him. Bella took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. Edward was incredible. He was my first love, a vampire with a heart of gold. He was polite, old-fashioned, and protective to a fault. I watched Bella's face light up as she spoke, the memories flowing freely until she reached the darker moments. I figured out that Edward and his family were vampires. But my wife's voice faltered. But when we fought Victoria's army of newborns, Edward and Victoria, they killed each other. As those words left her lips, I didn't need Edward's mind-reading ability to see how much she still grieved the death of her first love. Instinctively, I put my arm around her, drawing her close. My heart ached for her pain. I remembered falling in love with my first boyfriend, Diego, but I'd only known him for a short time before Victoria killed him. Bella and Edward had been together for much longer. Edie sat on Bella's other side and wrapped her arms around her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice soft and sincere. They were hard memories. I remembered Victoria and Riley sinking their teeth into my neck to add one more unwilling conscript to their army, an army built to carry out Victoria's vendetta against innocent people who'd never harmed her. I found myself liking Edie. Though Bella hadn't gone into detail about the murderous Victoria, the blonde vampires had reacted with compassion and had moved immediately to comfort someone she'd just met. I suppose Edie could read Bella's mind, and was probably reading my own as I remembered that awful situation, but Max couldn't. I glanced over at him. Eddie's human boyfriend was looking kindly at the three of us, but he couldn't possibly understand the context. "It's just so overwhelming," Bella confessed, her voice muffled against Eddie's shoulder. "I thought I'd lost everything, and now," she trailed off, uncertainty hanging in the air. "Edward's family took Bree in, and they took me in too when we got married. But we don't know how we got here or how to get back. This house is like ours, but it's different too. And the one person I've seen who should recognize me has no idea who I am." I squeezed her shoulder gently, my heart full of love and determination. "You haven't lost everything. You still have me. We'll figure this out." Edie nodded, her expression earnest. "You've got us too, Bella. There must be some reason why you ended up here. We'll help you find it." Max nodded. "If there's a force that can whisk you out of your life with no warning and deposit you in our universe, we've got to get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, we could be next, and we could end up in a universe where life never developed and Earth doesn't have an oxygen atmosphere, or something crazy like that." Eddie's eyes widened and she looked up at her boyfriend. "Goodness, I never thought of that. You're right. Can you tell us more about where you came from?" Max asked, sitting down on the desk chair. Bella explained how her mother had remarried and she'd moved to Forks to live with her father. She and Edward had moved past negative first impressions and had fallen in love, and then the sadistic James had decided to kill Bella for sport. Edward's brothers Emmett and Jasper had killed James, but the hunter's obsessive girlfriend Victoria had made Bella and the Cullens the targets of a maniacal revenge plot. Eddie's eyes widened when Bella mentioned my second adopted brother, Jasper. Bella nodded. "Alice's husband. He's here." Max and Edie both nodded. "He's at work now, but he'll be back in a few hours," Max told us. Bella squeezed my hand. Another familiar face was coming. I took up the story from there, explaining how Victoria had turned me and dozens of others into vampires to use as cannon fodder. Her plan was to make us kill the Cullens with overwhelming numbers. Instead of taking part in the battle, I'd hid. Edward had saved my life, but in the final confrontation, he and Victoria had killed each other. A few months after the Cullens gave me asylum, Bella and I started dating. I finished. We got married 3 years later. Max raised an eyebrow, a hint of disbelief on his face. "That's so weird." "Why?" I asked, genuinely puzzled by his reaction. Max shrugged, a wry smile creeping onto his lips. "We met an obsessive vampire too. She wanted me to be her new boyfriend, which was crazy. She already had 2. I couldn't help but be intrigued. 2 boyfriends? Edie nodded. She wanted 3. Max nodded. "They crashed a car into ours and kidnapped me when we were unconscious. One of her boyfriends killed the other one, and Edie, Jasper, and Alice killed her and the other boyfriend." Eddie's eyes widened. I wasn't used to Edie reading minds, but clearly Max was, and he noticed the look on her face. What is it, sweetheart? I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, Edie said. I'm seeing an image in your thoughts. Bella, Bree, what did Victoria look like? Tall, curly red blonde hair, I explained. Edie nodded. That sounds like Joss, Max said. Who? Bella asked. The vampire who went after me, Max said. I never had a girlfriend before I met Edie, and a couple weeks later Joss passed by. After seeing us together for about a minute, Joss decided she wanted me to be her love slave, or some crazy thing like that. I don't know what it is with me and vampires. I smiled wryly and nudged Bella. Or you and supernatural creatures. Bella grinned back at me. That is a crazy coincidence. Maybe Victoria was named Joss in this timeline. It sure sounds like her. Edie looked thoughtful. I don't know. One of Joss's boyfriends was named Victor. That is one heck of a coincidence, I agreed. Bella looked from Max to Edie, and then back to Max. Well, it sure sounds like what James did to me. I mean, not as elaborate, but James saw me for a minute or two and was obsessed with me from that moment on. When he died, Victoria became just as obsessed as he was. She paused for a moment. So you went after Joss as soon as she threatened you? Edie nodded. Well, sort of. Ernest and Corinne took one car to go after her, and Roy and Eleanor took another one. The plan was to tell Joss to leave us alone, and if she refused, to take her down before she hurt us. Jasper, Alice and I went to hide Max. She sighed. It backfired. Joss and her boyfriends put trackers on our cars. They evaded the others and came after us. Bella sighed. I wish we'd done that, taken the fight to them. If we'd just eliminated those three right away, Edward would still be alive. So would all the people Victoria kidnapped to turn into her newborn army. I squeezed my wife's hand gently. Yeah, but then we would never have met. I looked at the three of them. But I wish things had gone differently too. I wish I'd realized Riley was lying to me from the get-go. I should have figured it out sooner, that the people Victoria wanted to us kill were innocent, I mean. I wish I'd warned them. Then maybe I could have saved Edward like he saved me. Bella turned to face me, her eyes softening. Bree, we would have found each other somehow. I'm sure of it. I wanted to believe her, wanted to let her words wash over me. But I was filled with doubt. Would Bella have been better off with her first love? Do you really think so? I asked her. I do, Bella said, her voice steady and reassuring. Even if the paths we took were different, I believe fate would have led us back to each other. Love has a way of doing that, don't you think? The thought warmed me, and I leaned closer, allowing the comfort of her presence to fill the empty spaces left by loss. You're right. Love does find a way. Max and Edie exchanged a glance, an understanding passing between them. There was something about the way they looked at us, like they recognized a bond forged in the fires of adversity. I'm glad you two found each other, Edie said, her voice filled with sincerity. You deserve happiness after everything you've been through. Thanks, Bella replied. I looked into Bella's eyes, and the weight of everything we had been through hung in the air between us. Her gaze was steady and unwavering, a lifeline in a sea of difficult memories. I took a deep breath, remembering her soft hand on my cheek and her tender kisses lingering on my lips. I don't know, Bella, I finally said, the words spilling from my heart. Maybe we wouldn't have. Before Victoria turned me, I was starving, living on the street. I messed up too. I should have run away from Victoria's army instead of hiding during the battle. But I was afraid she'd find me and kill me. My voice trembled slightly as I continued. I owe your brother my life, Edie. I'd rather the newborns had been able to live their lives in peace, that the vampire who saved my life had survived, even if he was dating my future wife at the time. But there were so many things that could have gone wrong. I could have starved to death. Victoria could have killed me like she killed my friend Diego. The Volturi could have executed me for being part of Victoria's army. One of the Cullens could have killed me in the battle, not knowing I didn't want to be there and didn't want to hurt anyone. Bella's hand found my cheek, her touch gentle and soothing. She leaned closer, her eyes filled with understanding and love. Bree, I will Alice find you. I promise. For a moment, the heaviness in my heart lifted. Max looked at me with curiosity. Bree, how is it you came to be homeless? I sighed deeply, The memories surfacing like a wave. My dad used to beat me, I admitted, the pain of those moments still raw. I ran away. I tried to get a job, but no one would hire me because I was underage and didn't have an address. I was terrified, but it was better than living with my dad. Then this guy offered to share his dinner, and the next thing I knew, Riley and Victoria had their teeth in my neck. Max's eyes filled with compassion, and he reached out to touch my hand gently. I feel your pain. I mean, I have it lucky. My parents have never hit me, but they yell at me day in and day out. If they don't have a reason, like me getting an A- instead of an A or something, they make things up, or yell at me, 'cause they decide I'm lying when I'm telling the truth. He paused, his voice turning thoughtful. Since Edie and I started dating, I've been crashing here almost every night, and I don't think my parents even noticed I was gone. I could sense the hurt in his words, a familiar ache that resonated within me. It's hard when the people who are supposed to love you make you feel like you're worthless, I said softly. It's lonely. Edie rose and stood behind Max, putting her hands on his shoulders. You're not alone, love. We're all figuring things out together. Edie looked at Bella and me. You two aren't alone either. You're vegetarians like we are, in a world where we have to hide the truth from humans and live differently from other vampires. We'll help you with whatever you need. The blonde vampires paused for a moment. We don't know how you got here, but if there's a way to get you home, we'll help you. If not, you can stay with us for as long as you need. We're used to moving around every few decades, so we know how to work the system. I took Bella's hand in mine, squeezing it gently as I spoke. No matter what happens next, we have each other. Edie put her hand on top of Bella's, and then Max put his hand on Eddie's. Edie spent the next few minutes telling us about her life. Like Edward, she'd been dying of influenza when Corinne turned her into a vampire to save her life. Corinne then met and married Ernest. Roy and Eleanor had joined their family in the same way Rosalie and Emmett had ours. Finally, Alice and Jasper had joined him too, in a story that was absolutely identical to the way it had happened in our timeline. Bella grinned. I can't imagine a world without Alice in it. I squeezed her hand. Me neither. It would be like bringing a Christmas tree home and never bothering to decorate it. There was a knock on the door. It opened a moment later and Alice poked her head in. Hey, she said with a bright smile. Everybody doing all right in here? We're good, Max assured her. Yeah, come in, Edie added. Alice took the seat next to Edie without hesitation, folding her legs underneath her in an effortless motion. Bella glanced between Alice and Edie, shaking her head slightly. It's so weird that some things are so similar, and others are completely different, she said. Her gaze settled on Edie. Your story of meeting Max sounds so much like how I met Edward. But I cannot believe one of Joss's boyfriends actually killed the other one. Edie nodded. Victor and Laurent never seemed to like each other much. We figured Joss must have had some kind of hold over them. Bella's mouth fell open slightly. Laurent and Victor killed him. Eddie's eyebrows lifted. Wait, you knew Laurent? Bella nodded. Yeah. He was a friend of James. She hesitated before adding, after James died, he tried to kill me, but the wolves took him out. Alice tilted her head. Who's James? Bella sighed. He was this vampire, a tracker. He went after me, kind of like how Joss went after Max. Oh my god. Her eyes widened slightly as she stared at Alice. You don't know. Alice blinked in confusion. Know what? Bella hesitated, glancing around the room. She seemed to be trying to find the right words, or maybe debating whether to say anything at all. I couldn't blame her. I understood where Bella was going with this. Having heard the story from the Alice of our timeline, and I wouldn't have any idea where to begin. Bella leaned forward. Do you know who you were before you became a vampire? Alice shook her head, her lips pressing together. I have no idea. Edie took a deep breath. Oh my goodness. Alice frowned. What? Did the Alice from your timeline find out? Bella nodded slowly. Alice's hands gripped her knees. Can you tell me? There was something yearning in her voice, something vulnerable. Please. I shifted uncomfortably. Alice, I said, are you sure you want to hear this? You might not like what you learn. Alice was silent for a moment, her golden eyes thoughtful. Then she nodded. I'd rather know than not know. Bella took a deep breath. You were born Mary Alice Brandon, she said carefully. You had visions, premonitions, even before you became a vampire. You tried to warn people when you saw bad things coming, but no one believed you. When your visions did come true, they blamed you for them. Alice's face was unreadable, but I saw the way her fingers curled slightly against her jeans, her knuckles tightening. Bella continued, her voice softer now. Your father put you in an insane asylum. Alice's expression didn't change, but a muscle in her jaw twitched. Bella pressed on. James somehow heard about you. I don't know how, but she exhaled sharply. James was sadistic. Even for a vampire who fed on humans, he was cruel. He went on a killing spree, terrorizing you through your visions, getting closer and closer to the asylum. Alice's lips parted slightly as she processed this. So James turned me. Bella shook her head, unconsciously denouncing the sadism that she simply couldn't understand. He was planning on killing you, but wanted to terrify you out of your wits first. But there was another vampire at the asylum, one of the workers. He turned you so you'd be able to defend yourself. Alice's brows pulled together slightly. So James just lost interest. Bella nodded. Yeah. Once you became a vampire, you weren't the helpless little human he wanted to torment anymore. The Cullens didn't encounter him until 100 years later when he came after me. That's when he told me he'd heard about you when you were human. Alice exhaled slowly. Mary Alice Brandon, she murmured. Then, after a pause, she added, Whitlock. Cullen. She gave a soft, almost wry smile. Gosh, I have a lot of names. Bella offered a small smile in return, but then Alice straightened slightly, her curiosity shifting. So why did James come after you? She asked. Bella sighed, rubbing at her forehead. He was a bully. And he liked to challenge. He thought it would be fun to go after the one human who was friends with a family of vampires, to prove he was smarter than all of them. Fortunately, Jasper, my Jasper, and Emmett got to him first. Emmett? Max asked. My brother, I told him. Well, adopted brother. Alice was still watching Bella intently. Where am I from, Bella? Biloxi, Mississippi, Bella told her. The other Alice, my Alice, found out she had a niece who was still alive. She'd be a grandmother by now, but she was still out there. Alice's eyes widened slightly, and she looked away, lost in thought. Finally, she said, when all this is over, we'll have to go to Biloxi. See if anything there jogs my memory. Bella hesitated. Alice, well, my Alice, said that didn't work for her. She shrugged slightly. But maybe things will be different for you. Alice sat back, considering this, before suddenly clapping her hands together and offering a grin. Well, that was unexpected. I was just checking in to see if you all needed anything, and now I have a tragic backstory. Bella let out a small laugh. Edie reached over and took Alice's hand, squeezing it gently. Alice grinned at her, then rose. We can figure out how to solve all our problems tomorrow, she told us, clapping her hands together. We've been brooding over alternate dimensions, tragedies, and vampire politic for way too long. Time for something fun. Edie looked at her sister. Fun? Alice nodded decisively. Yes, fun. As in, let's do something completely unrelated to all of this. She gestured toward the doorway. Come on, everyone. Let's play baseball. As we got ready, Ernest and Roy came into the living room, each accompanied by a vampire I'd never seen before. Bella, Bree, this is my wife Corinne, and my daughter-in-law Eleanor, Ernest said. Corinne, Eleanor, these are our guests, Mrs. Bella Swan and Mrs. Bree Tanner. I'll fill you in on the way. Corinne was welcoming, and looked like a silent movie star. Though her hair was a lighter blonde than Eddie's, they looked like they wouldn't have any trouble passing for mother and daughter. Eleanor was athletic, with curly dark hair. She and Roy were the living embodiment of the proverb that opposites attract. While Roy was moody, Eleanor was outgoing and liked joking around. She and her husband were affectionate with each other, and her presence made him considerably more cheerful. Alice and Eleanor led us to a clearing, one in the opposite direction from the one where Bella and I had seen the lightning. The group of us had played 2 innings when another vampire arrived in the clearing. He smiled as he looked us over, and I jumped in delight when I saw him. Jasper! I exclaimed. I was about to run over and hug him, but Bella's hand on my shoulder stopped me. Then I saw the expression on his face, and kicked myself for my short-sightedness. This wasn't the Jasper I knew. He had no idea who I was. Jazz, these are our guests, Alice said, dancing over to take his arm. Bella Swan and Bree Tanner. Bella, Bree, this is my husband. Right, Jasper said slowly. Nice to meet you. How do you know my name? I'll explain later, Alice told him softly. Come play. I lost track of the score, but Bella and I had fun playing together and getting to know our hosts. Max wasn't bad, but he wasn't great, either, especially compared to the others. It touched my heart to see how Edie and her family didn't treat him any differently because he wasn't a vampire. The next morning, Bella and I led him to the clearing where we'd seen the lightning. Each step felt heavier with the complete incomprehensibility of what had happened. Would it happen to us again when we arrived? Where might we end up next? Would it be a place with no air, like Max had feared? Vampires don't need to breathe in order to survive, but we do it anyway in order to talk and smell scents. I glanced sideways at Bella. Her presence anchored me, and she walked with more courage than I felt. The 8 of us spread out cautiously around the clearing, the stillness thickening in the air. There were a few birds singing. I scanned our surroundings, half expecting something sinister to leap out from the shadows. Yet, as we searched the area, nothing appeared unusual. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a rustling sound broke through the silence. Someone was coming. Hide, Bella hissed, her voice urgent. We quickly slipped behind the thick trunks of the trees. 2 figures emerged into the clearing, their movements fluid and confident. My eyes widened as I recognized 2 of the vampire mercenaries who had once kidnapped me from the Cullens' backyard. Panic surged within me and I shifted my weight, preparing to run. But before I could let out a sound, Bella's hand clamped gently over my mouth, her grip firm but tender. Did you hear that? The first mercenary said, his voice low and probing. Yes, coming from over there, replied the second, scanning the area. Suppose it's the vampires we're looking for. The first one mused, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice. The second shrugged. We're just interested in the one with the shield. We can dispose of any other witnesses. The first one snorted. They couldn't have even had the good sense to summon this chick to Volterra. We had to come all this way to the rain capital of North America. A chill ran down my spine as they advanced, heading straight for our hiding spot. I could feel Bella's body tense beside me, her determination solidifying into a plan. She whispered in my ear, her breath sending a shiver through me. I'll lead him off. You take them from behind. Got it? I nodded, adrenaline surging as Bella darted out of our hiding place. I watched her flee with all the grace and speed of a cheetah. The mercenaries took the bait and chased after her. I slipped out from behind the tree and chased them. I wasn't going to let them escape. Both of them were much larger than I was, and if they attacked me together I wasn't confident that I could hold my own, but I heard our 7 friends hot on my heels. In a flash, Jasper, Ernest, Roy, and Eleanor overtook me, and intercepted the mercenaries. I heard the sickening sound of bodies hitting the ground. I skidded to a stop with Alice, Corinne, and Edie beside me in time to see the 4 rip the mercenaries apart. Max arrived a moment later, and I leaned against a tree. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to hit something or cry. Bella returned, wrapping her arms around me. How can those 2 still be alive? I saw them die. I asked her. Bella pulled back slightly, disgust in her eyes. I realized what she'd already figured out, and answered my own question. Of course, they're still alive here. But that meant. Bella nodded. It's the Volturi. Why can't they leave us alone? Are we not safe even in another blasted universe? Just then, Alice rushed over, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. She enveloped us both in a hug, the tenderness of her embrace soothing my heart. Thank you, I whispered to Alice, feeling the love radiating from her. You're the best sister in any timeline. With a small smile, Alice nodded. Max looked at everyone. Who are the Volturi? The Volturi are the ruling council of vampires, Edie told him. They enforce the laws of our kind and make sure we stay hidden from humans. They don't take kindly to anyone who calls attention to themselves. Alice's eyes widened as she processed what Bella had said. The Volturi are behind this. But why would they be interested in Bella and Bree? I couldn't help but feel a knot in my stomach. Not me, I said angrily, glancing at Bella. Bella. The mercenaries said they were interested in her because of her shield. Eleanor turned to Bella, her gaze curious. What shield? Bella explained, and I was amazed by her ability to keep her voice steady. I was about ready to scream. I can block other vampires' powers, she told them. It's like a barrier, and it prevents their abilities from affecting me or anyone I want to protect. Alice blinked. Anyone? Well, they have to be close enough, but yeah. Roy frowned. But how could the Volturi bring them here from another universe? Ernest crossed his arms, looking deep in thought. And why? Not all the Volturi are alike, Ernest, Corinne said. Marcus is fairly reasonable. He only cares about keeping humans from discovering our existence. But Aro and Keys, they can be very ambitious. I nodded, my heart sinking to my stomach. I see. You think they brought Bella here to recruit her? Corinne gave a small nod, her expression grave. I think I'm going to be sick, Bella said, only partly in jest. Her face did look slightly green, and I put my arm around her waist. She smiled gratefully at me. Max frowned. Hang on. If these Volturi are as powerful as you say, why would they need to? Why are so many millionaires, who already have more money than they could ever use, obsessed with getting more? Ernest asked rhetorically. Why do tyrants who already rule large countries want to conquer their neighbors? Their greed is out of control. Eleanor tilted her head. Have you ever met the Volturi, Dad? He shook his head. No, but that's how people work. Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, Max added, his voice low. We began walking back towards the house. Bella kept hold of my hand, her presence keeping me from panicking. Edie turned to us, her expression serious. Bella, Bree, you sound like you've had experience with the Volturi from your universe. Bella sighed, the weight of memories pressing down on her. Yeah, the Volturi attacked us a few years ago. They wanted to force me, Alice, and Jasper to join their army. She glanced at Alice and Jasper, who exchanged glances but stayed silent. Alice figured out a way to defeat them. She trained us how to counter every move the Volturi could possibly make, so there was literally no way for them to win a confrontation. Carlyle, my father-in-law, negotiated a peace treaty with them afterward. Max looked thoughtful. Well, assuming the Volturi in our universe are like the ones in yours, it sounds like that's what they're trying to do again. Recruit vampires with special abilities from other universes to join their army. Alice frowned. But if that's true, why not come after Jasper, Edie, and me? I'd think it would be easier to recruit soldiers from your own planet than from another dimension. Jasper's expression darkened. Maybe they haven't gotten to us yet. Maybe it is easier, Alice, Bella suggested. She was thinking out loud, but I was sure she was onto something, even though I hadn't heard her reasoning yet. When she gets focused, Bella can be one of the most insightful people I've ever met. How do you mean? Alice asked, intrigued. If the Volturi have developed a means to bring vampires here from alternate timelines, maybe recruiting people actually is easier that way, Bella explained. I mean, Alice, Jasper, Edie, if the Volturi showed up at your door and conscripted you into their army, would you go along willingly? Of course not, Jasper replied firmly. Edie nodded in agreement, and Alice rested her head on Jasper's shoulder. I was just thinking about what would have happened to Bree and me if we had shown up at your house thinking it was ours and you hadn't taken us in, Bella continued, her voice soft but filled with emotion. We'd be lost, confused, and afraid, with nowhere to go and no idea what happened to us. Our friends and family would be gone or wouldn't recognize us. Then the Volturi would show up and offer us sanctuary. Jasper's expression darkened further. Easy recruits. I get it. Eddie's voice trembled slightly. Dang, this is scary. Is there anything we can do? Max asked. Roy looked skeptical. Even if there is, do we want to get involved? There are a lot more Volturi than there are of us, and they're a continent and an ocean away. Corinne has an understanding with them. We don't bother them, and they don't bother us, so long as we play by the rules. Heck, we're vegetarians. We're more careful than most vampires. I think we have to, Roy, Ernest told him, his tone serious. I don't like it either, But we told Bella and Bree that we would help them get home if we could. Besides, if the Volturi are building an army of vampires with enhanced abilities, they'll come for Edie, Alice, and Jasper eventually. Could we make an agreement with them, like Bella's father-in-law did? Roy suggested. Corinne, if we did, would they keep it? Ernest asked, looking to her. Marcus would, Corinne replied, her expression thoughtful. R.O. and Keys, though I would like to think so, but knowing him, they'd probably outvote him. No one said anything for a moment. We could see the house in the distance. Finally, Max spoke up. I think Ernest is right. The Allies didn't join forces against the Nazis until they'd already conquered most of Europe. It would have been much easier to stop Hitler if everyone had fought back as soon as he started attacking his neighbors. We don't want to make the same mistake now. I hate to say it, but I agree, Jasper added, his gaze serious. We have to stop whatever the Volturi are doing. If we don't, they'll get so powerful that when they eventually do come for us, we won't stand a chance at all. All right, Ernest said. I could tell he wasn't happy about the situation, but I admired him. Unlike some people I'd known, he was smart enough to face the situation as it was instead of sticking his head in the sand and pretending it wasn't real. Corinne, Bella, you've met the Volturi before, and I'd really appreciate it if you two could put your heads together and think of everything you know about them. Where they live, what their defenses are, what they're like, their strengths, their weaknesses, and so on. Bella nodded slowly. Well, the Volturi where Bree and I come from may not be like the Volturi here. True, Ernest acknowledged. But Corinne can corroborate your experiences with your Volturi to see if they fit with what she knows. I mean, your house in your universe looks just like ours, right? We both nodded in agreement. The interior decorating's a little different, Bella noted with a hint of a smile. Outside, it's exactly the same. When Bella and I first walked in, I added, it was like coming to a place you haven't been since you were a kid, not like seeing someplace for the first time. I think it's likely that the Volturi compound here is the same as it is where you come from, Ernest said. We can probably rely on your knowledge, Bella, unless Corinne knows for a fact that something is different here. I'll try to keep an eye on the Volturi in my visions, too, Alice interjected. I loved it when Alice spoke like that. Her upbeat tone and confidence lifted the mood considerably. You can do that? Max asked, intrigued. Alice nodded. It's easiest to see the future of people I know, but it's not limited to that. It's how I can predict which stocks are going to increase in value and when best to sell them. When I'm going to meet someone in the future, I start seeing visions about them. It's not easy to see someone I've never met and I'm never going to, but it's not impossible, and it gets easier with practice. In fact, Corinne, Bella, when you two do your brainstorming session, I'd like to sit in so I can get to know what the Volturi are like through you. It'll make seeing their future easier. Corinne smiled softly. Well, there's no time like the present. We'll do it as soon as we get home. We walked up to the doors, and Ernest unlocked them. Wait a moment, Alice, Bella said. If you can see visions of people you haven't met yet, but you will in the future, why didn't you see Bree or me? Alice blinked, caught off guard. That's a good question. I don't know. But I definitely can't see other dimensions. I didn't even know they existed until you showed up at our door. I mean, I can see you now, here, with us. I can see us making decisions together, like a family, for the next week or so. She paused, her eyes looking far away for a moment. But there's a point in the future where I can't see you anymore. That's odd. Does that mean we're going home? Bella asked, hope flickering in her voice. Or it means we get killed, I said glumly. Part 2 coming soon.